Welcome to day 4 of MizzouCentral's coverage of the NFL Scouting Combine. I'm Joey Van Zummeren, and I'm here with Quentin Corpuel to discuss everything going on with Mizzou players here in Indianapolis. Today we heard from Missouri running back Cody Schrader, who is always great to talk to. Obviously, one of the top stories in college football this season and will be one of the top stories of the draft process. And then yesterday, Darius Robinson worked out. Tyron Hopper did not participate in drills, however. So quite a bit to talk about today. Quentin, I'll start off with you. What did you think of Cody Schrader talking to us today?
It's always a treat talking to him, and I thought he did a really good job of explaining his story, his career arc in the 15 minutes that he was allotted for talking to the media.
Yeah, I think it just kind of really tells that how much I can persevere through in times that I've been doubted, not given opportunities, and just I think it speaks to who I am as a football player and what I can bring at this next level.
I thought one of the most interesting stories he told, because he told a few, was basically how he got noticed throughout his time in Mizzou when he was trying to fight from being buried on the depth chart to obviously being the starter.
Yeah, it's very difficult walking on, becoming, I think I was like 8th on the depth chart when I first got there. But what I want a lot of kids to understand, if that you're in that same scenario, is that you got to figure out how to get your name talked about and get your name buzzing around the facility. And the way I put a game plan together myself was I worked out every day at 6:30. I would show up every day at 5 a.m. And my goal with that was to beat the head strength coach there every day, because I knew he met with the head coach every day in staff meetings. And I drove a red Ford Ranger, so I knew he would see my car every single day, and I would park it in the middle of the facility of the parking lot. So I knew, because he walks from the very back to the front, so I knew he would see it. And hopefully my goal with that was asking, who is this kid? Like, why is he here every single day? But it's the consistency over time is what builds trust and respect with coaches.
It was always it's always really good talking to him, and I thought he did a really good job of explaining that today.
Yes, you and I were kind of talking about in the days leading up to Cody's press conference that there's going to be a lot of people asking about his story, and that really we probably wouldn't learn any new details. That's what we expect at least. But he provided plenty more in-depth details. There are just so many layers to Cody Schrader's story, almost like an onion. So great to talk to him today. My main takeaway from it, somebody asked him 3 words to describe his playing style, and he said joy, peace, and fun. And if you've ever watched Cody Schrader, his playing style is not peaceful. But basically the direction he took it was how football impacts his life.
There's a lot of stuff that goes on in our lives. Everybody has different struggles, different stuff that they go through. Our world is a crazy world. Sometimes it's moving at a million miles an hour. And for me, when I'm on the field for those 3 to 4 hours, nothing else matters. It brings me a different peace and a joy that a lot of stuff doesn't bring me. And it's something that I'm addicted to, and I just love it.
Me and Cody Schrader have very little in common, except height, maybe, but also the fact how we view football as a distraction, and how it is kind of a calm point in our life. So I appreciated hearing Cody talk today. Be interested to see where he goes in the draft. Yesterday, like I mentioned earlier, Darius Robinson, Missouri's pass rusher, worked out. So we ran a 4.95 40, which is obviously the main one there. The main conversation around Darius right now, at least from his numbers yesterday, his numbers are better for what you would expect out of a defensive tackle and not so much out of the edge. But I think NFL teams will trust the tape on him rather than kind of being drawn away from his testing numbers. But other than that, his physical stature was great. Great measurements there. But Quentin, any thoughts on Darius's performance yesterday?
Did as much as he could. I think when you look at relative athletic score, it was somewhere in the 9s for a defensive tackle. I think it was a 6.26 for a defensive end, which isn't great, but at the same time, relative athletic score isn't everything. It does help to have a bunch of athletic tools that you can't really be taught. But at the same time, just because you have a low relative athletic score doesn't mean you can't succeed in the NFL. There is not a positive correlation with those two things. So I think he'll be okay. And then Tyron Hopper did not test yesterday, although he did measure in about 6'1", 231, pretty much what we expected. Curious to see how Ennis will do in the drills this afternoon, because Something I thought that was really interesting he talked about yesterday was a 40 time and how fast a cornerback is or how fast a defensive back is. And he basically said, look, if you're running 22 to 23 miles an hour during a game as a defensive back, that probably means you got beat and you're running to catch up to the guy that got past you. So I'm curious to see what he runs in, like the shuttle, the agility stuff. That's what I'm more curious to see, because I think those are more indicative of what a defensive back could do in the NFL versus just straight line speed. Because again, you don't really want to be doing that. So yeah, I'm curious to see how they do today.
That's an interesting point for Minutes on the 40-yard dash. And there's been some interesting conversation over the years about kind of the usefulness of the 40-yard dash for different positions. I mean, the main reason it was even started as a thing that teams started to care about it was for special team gunners. I believe 40 yards was like the average distance of a punt, and they wanted to know how quick a gunner could get down there to block somebody. But it's obviously going to be take up a lot of headlines from the NFL Combine. But I do think that is a good point for Minnis, and that short distance speed, like he mentioned, is probably more purposeful for NFL teams when evaluating quarterbacks. But that's what we got for you today from Indianapolis. Tomorrow will be our last day here in Indy. So we will be hearing from Harrison Mevis along with offensive tackle Javon Foster from Missouri, and then they will work out on Sunday. Tomorrow, we will get to see Cody Schrader along with quarterbacks and wide receivers on the field. So we thank you for tuning in to this video, and make sure to stay tuned to our coverage throughout the remainder of the week.